All right, we got breaking news. First time I'm reading this. Let's take a look at it together. With the launch of Dragonflight Season 1, we're making some tuning adjustments to classes being scheduled with a weekly maintenance coming up in a few days. We've been taking a long look at tank survivability as we prepare for the beginning of Dragonflight Season 1. In general, we found that the new talent trees have introduced a lot of power across all classes and specializations, just not Monk. Talents that were once exclusive through systems like a talent row, legendary, or covenants can now be equipped all at the same time. Through our recent testing, we've determined that the damage done to tanks needs to be increased. While we're thrilled that players are enjoying playing tanks in Dragonflight and want their role to be healthy, there are some negative effects that can come from tanks being too strong that we want to avoid. We want healers to play a key role in keeping tanks alive, and tanks shouldn't be able to easily solo large portions of encounter after the rest of the group died. We're adjusting the damage reduction passives on all of the tanks, effectively increasing the damage tanks take by 10%. We think tanks will still feel powerful after this change, and it will result in a more balanced gameplay experience for the players. So let's just read through it really quick, and then we'll talk about it. Blood Fortification no longer reduces damage taken by 10%. Demonic Wards passives have been removed, reducing Demonic Wards total damage reduction to 10%. And let's just keep going because I'm pretty sure that's not anything else to think about. But rank 1 and rank 2. So I guess it was 5 each, or I see. It was 20% damage reduction. Now it's only going to be a 10% damage reduction. I see. Earth Sign Adept no longer reduces damage taken 10%. Brewmaster's Balance. That's ironic. A hell of an ironic name for that. No longer reduces damage taken by 10%. Aegis of Light no longer reduces. And Prot Warrior reduces damage taken. Was 5 damage reduction. Defensive stance now reduces damage taken by 15%. Was 20%. What? What'd you just do? What'd you just do here? So hold on a second. Defensive stance got nerfed for 5%, and then Vanguard got nerfed by 5%. So that should equal a 10% nerf. But nobody fucking tanks in D stance. So it's only a 5% nerf for Warrior. Okay, so here's the problem. What we actually have here is imbalance between the tanks as well. Now, we've been talking about it a lot recently, where I've been saying basically 5 tanks out of the 6 are extremely, extremely bulky. Okay, and the one outlier is Monk. And they still received the same 10% damage nerf. Okay, and there's one that if I was to say is maybe even overpowered, it would be Prot Warrior. And they basically received, less of a damage nerf than everyone else. And I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe most players are playing in D-stance, but when I was looking into Prot Warrior in the pre-patch, nobody was using D-stance. So I don't know, man. Let's just move on from that because that's very bizarre to me, but whatever. Let's talk a little bit about the situation here overarching scheme, okay? So they did this exact same thing, but in reverse in they probably did it in Mob 2. They did the exact same thing, but in reverse in Shadowlands, okay? And I can't exactly remember when, but it was a really, really big deal when it happened, okay? And I think I even made a video on it because I remember saying these words. A 10% damage reduction to all tanks is the bigger buff to blood than it is to any other tank. Because every other tank relies on their damage reduction to some degree anyway, right? Like a warrior, they have really their main frontline mitigation is going to be how they keep themselves alive, right? And so, even though you could solo stuff as a warrior now because it's so easy, you still are mostly just mitigating damage. And as soon as you stop mitigating the damage, you don't have a lot of answers for it. Blood Decay is the complete opposite. They don't really care how much damage they take. As long as they can survive the hit, they'll be able to overcome it. And so this has become a lot of controversy here because, people don't seem to know that there's a difference between the tanks. They said, we want healers to play a key role in keeping tanks alive, and tanks shouldn't be able to easily solo large portions of encounters after the rest of the groups have died. But then you have tanks that are made to do that, basically, right? Like Blood Decay, maybe Vengeance, maybe Prop Pally. What are you talking about? Why would you even say that? So, it's comments like that that are unfortunate Because if any, and I know how this process works, whenever a post like this gets made, pretty much everybody who's any type of part of this department will proofread it, and it gets sent from person to person to person. And if any change gets made, it gets resent, and it keeps getting it. This is why this communication chain takes so long. And this is how it's worked for years. Maybe somehow it's different now, but this is how it used to work. And it's hard to believe that anybody wrote that and was like, yeah, that's right, let's post that. Tanks shouldn't be able to easily solo large portions of encounters after the rest of their group have died. Blood DK has been doing that since Cataclysm. You understand that? Like, I mean, that's, and I'm sure other tanks like have been in and out of that boat too. And so that's exactly all you need to hear here. This is going to be a major nerf to Blood DK, and the other tanks probably won't even really care about it that much. And you know, those people who are saying that Blood DK was not a very good tank right now, well, now it's really going to come. We're going to test its metal now. Okay. And I welcome this. I would prefer, you know, to not have tanks in this state. We talked about this a lot on stream because it's just not right. Like it's just way too easy. And a lot of people were like, "Oh no, it's good for the game. You want people to want to play tanks." It's like it's not good for the game. There's no way it's good for the game to have one, you know, potentially maybe even two people in a raid group be completely unkillable because we haven't started raids. You know what I mean? It's one thing to talk about Mythic Plus, but frankly, raids are usually too easy to survive as it is anyway. So yeah, that was going to seriously impact how people were probably going to do raids. And they don't mention that. That's really something they should have said. But maybe it's not a good idea to mention specific content. But yeah, I mean, the race to world first is coming up. So, you know, I think there's a reality here where this maybe gets undone if it doesn't end up working. Because, you know, like I said, in Shadowlands, they added this. This was exactly like it was the same post, but opposite. And it was needed as shit in Shadowlands. So this time around, I don't think it's that gonna. Is it gonna make it harder to tank? Yeah, obviously, but is it gonna make it like untankable? No, not really. I was looking forward a little bit to the tank being the easiest thing, because frankly the tank has a lot of responsibility in Mythic Plus. But no, that absolutely is not good for the game, and no matter what, I don't I don't think anybody should want that, to be honest, because you think it's some social solution to something, but that's just not good. You don't want people tanking who aren't actually interested in tanking just because it's overpowered. That's really bad. They have to want to tank. They have to want to be a leader of the group. They have to want to be, a potential innovator for the group. They want to have to. They should want to be what the tank is, not just like, oh, I can do this and it's easy mode and I don't even have to be good at it. That's a really bad thing to get into as a tank. So anyway, yeah, I do think, regardless, Blood DK is in the best position it's ever been, 10% damage reduction. And it's really just, I mean, 10%. We're not talking about a 50% damage change here. Um, but the thing about it, like I said at that time when the Shadowlands change happened, 10% damage reduction for other tanks is also something to think about because that is a magic nerf too, right? So, like, again, Prot Warrior is going to be relatively strong against physical, very relatively strong against physical, but they won't be much stronger. Maybe they won't be stronger at all against magic, right? And that was before this change. So now you're really wondering, like, okay, what does a damage profile of pure magic look like against some of these tanks now with that nerf? Because typically physical attacks are like consistent; they're around the same every hit. It's like very normal. But a 10% nerf to those or whatever buff to those would make them go up a little bit, and you'd probably notice it over the course of a dungeon. But in a magic scenario, where these casters are casting spirit bombs at people, just launching moons at people, well, that's a 10% buff to that. You know what I mean? And it's like now I think some tanks are going to be in for a much different situation. So, it's whatever. It's a number. It's not really that big of a number, but I just wanted to make this video because I knew a lot of people were going to ask me about it. So that's, I welcome the challenge. I love being challenged as a player, and Blood DK, frankly, it's only fun when it's challenging, I think, to be honest. And that's part of why the content in the first 2 weeks is so unfun for me as a Death Knight, because it's like, this is no challenge at all. Obviously, Mythic Plus was always going to be challenging no matter what, but I do think, yeah, that this will be a lot more interesting. So Let me know what you guys think. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next one.